It drills into your ear. It tears at your nerves. You feel as though you want to scream and roar. Those are the words of First Lieutenant Louis Micard, a French officer on the receiving end of the Blitzkrieg in May 1940. And he wasn't talking about the bomb, he was talking about the sound. Now imagine, you are 12,000 feet above the French countryside, the year is 1940, and in your right hand is the control stick of a Junkers Ju-87, the Stuka. And in a moment, you will do something that defies every survival instinct you possess. You are going to point the nose of your aircraft directly at the ground and drop like a stone. This week on the pod, we aren't just looking at a plane, we are looking at a psychological weapon. We're going to use the flight logs of ace pilots like Hans Ulrich Rudel to understand the physical toll of the dive and find out why the Germans installed an autopilot for when their pilots went blind. I'm Greg, and welcome to this week's episode of the WW2 Recon podcast. To understand the fear, you have to understand the machine, and I pulled the technical specs on the Ju-87B1. When a pilot like Hans Ulrich Rudel spotted a target, for instance, maybe a Soviet tank, a bridge, or a bunker, he didn't just dive, he initiated a complex mechanical sequence. He would throw a dive lever to the rear. This limited the throw of the control stick so he couldn't pull back too hard by mistake. The dive brakes, these were giant slats under the wing, would deploy automatically. He'd throttle back, close the coolant flaps to keep the engine hot, and then roll 180 degrees. Whilst upside down, he'd then pull the nose through the horizon until he was pointing straight down 90 degrees. Unsurprisingly, this is where the human body fails. According to Rudel's own account, the pullout was the most dangerous moment. He describes the G-forces as crushing, and at the bottom of the dive, releasing the bomb triggered an automatic 6G pullout. The blood drains from your head, your vision narrows. Rudel called it the grey veil, or seeing stars. You're effectively flying blind, just feet above the ground, travelling at 370 miles per hour. But the engineers at Junkers knew this would happen. They knew their pilots would pass out, so they built a failsafe into the wing. If you look at photos of the Stuka, on the upper surface of the wing there are these little red tabs. These were the indicators for the Upfangerat, the automatic dive recovery system. When that bomb dropped, the plane flew itself. It pulled out of the dive automatically while the pilot fought to regain consciousness. Rudel writes about waking up groggy, climbing back towards the sun, the plane having saved him from burying himself into the earth. But for the men on the ground, like Lieutenant Micard, the physics didn't matter. It was a siren, or better known as the Jericho trumpet. It was a simple device, a small propeller on the landing gear strut, and as the plane dived, the wind spun the propeller, driving the siren. This alone would break the enemy before the bomb. But here is the twist. As the war went on, the siren became a liability. Veteran soldiers had learned that the sound was a warning. In later technical bulletins, we see that the pilots were given the option to remove them. They created drag, slowed the plane down, and told the enemy exactly where you were. The trumpet was eventually silenced, but not by the enemy, just by physics. Next week, we are going to start looking at the men who hunted the Stukas. We'll be discussing the few and the tactics that they would use to break the Luftwaffe. If you enjoyed this sortie, do me a favour, share this episode with one friend who thinks they know everything about World War II, and ask them maybe, did they know about the red tabs on the Stuka's wings? If you want to see diagrams of that automatic dive recovery system that we just talked about, head over to the podcast Instagram page and I'll leave photos and diagrams for you to analyse yourself. Also, if you have enjoyed this podcast, I would appreciate it if you could take the time to leave a review wherever you are listening. It would be greatly received. Thank you, and I will catch you on the next episode.